I had no intention of meeting Kyle. I was supposed to leave Indianapolis the next afternoon on a flight through Atlanta, but Atlanta was under snow siege. Every flight to and from the Southeast canceled, including mine. I'd have to get up at 6 a.m. to catch my new flight. I was very hungry, so I Google mapped myself to a British tavern that I found on Yelp. But when I got there, it looked mundane, like a dead end. I was high from performing at a local university. I wasn't looking for a dead end. I got out of the car and turned. Right there, across the street, I spotted the most Brooklyn hipster taco and tequila bar eatery in the Midwest, Bakersfield. I walked in, scanned the menu, scanned the room, scanned the empty seats at the bar, and headed to an empty seat to the left of this guy I could tell was alone, yet playfully flirting with the women to his left. I, too, wanted to be playfully flirted with, or at the very least, noticed. I piled my scarf, hoodie, jacket, and bag onto a stool, sat down next to the guy's left, ordered 3 tacos and an ice water, flung back my long curly hair, and waited. The guy appeared to be a douchey right-wing conservative. Baseball hat, long-sleeve ribbed shirt, and those stupid-ass leather shoes mainstream guys wear out to bars. I didn't know what kind of laugh that would get, and now I forgot my place. Right. Here we are. Welcome to the story, everyone. Now I remember. Here I am in Indianapolis. Great. We're at a bar? Great. I ask the bartender if the taco tortillas are gluten-free. The guy goes, "I bet the ice cubes in your water have gluten in them. Be careful." Then he commented about my water in general. Was that really all I was drinking? Yes, I said. Well, what's your vice then? I don't have a vice. Everyone has a vice. I drive myself nuts, I said. Later in the evening, I'd learn his name was Kyle. Kyle played his courtship masterfully. Every time he paid more attention to me, he paid less attention to the 2 women who eventually left. And the more we talked, the more walls we shed. We shared our life stories with each other, literally. Everything. And it wasn't forced, it just flowed naturally out of our mouths. Death, grief, loss, trauma, heartbreak. In fact, we were both going through breakups with long-term partners. He was a year out. I was a couple months in. And now here we were. And eventually, we headed to another bar where we officially introduced ourselves. I didn't tell him, but Kyle was my secret boyfriend name growing up. The name I fantasized my romantic partner might one day have. And here he was, in Indianapolis, the middle of fucking nowhere. And I had to catch a flight in 7 hours, and he was a fucking Republican. For the economy, who supports reproductive rights and marriage equality, thank God. And he showered me with compliments and told me I was pretty. And I actually felt pretty. For the first time in so many years, I actually felt beautiful. And he told me he's been in 18 weddings. Like 27 dresses, I asked? Katherine Hagel ruined my life. Why is it that every time I say that, people mention that movie? Why can't they comment on how I must be a really good friend? When we left the bar, oh, nope, we're not there yet. He serenades me. Yeah, I know. I can't even handle it. He serenades me with Beauty and the Beast and Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat. He is simultaneously fulfilling all of my romantic fantasies, including the Republican one I'd texted Elaine about 3 days prior. I'm too in shock to sing along. I want to pinch myself. I even ask him if he's real. How can this right-wing conservative, who ironically does eat gluten-free and dairy-free, is also going through a breakup, loves the best music, knows Disney lyrics and the best romantic comedies, also knows a lot about chakras and energy, and he is gorgeous, just stunningly gorgeous from a farm town in Illinois. This magnificent walking contradiction. How can he be real? When the bar closes, we end up in his apartment kicking a soccer ball back and forth in the middle of his living room. And he tells me some poignant story about kicking a soccer ball as a kid with a friend. Tells me I have no idea how much this means to him. Tells me he will remember this evening for the rest of his life. And we agree the word for this thing we're sharing, is serendipity. When we move to the couch, he changes the Pandora station to 50s, 60s R&B soul. You know, right? It had previously been Grateful Dead and Fish, so obviously it's only getting better, right? He changes it to 50s, 60s R&B soul. We scrunch in close together, my legs draped over his lap, my left ear resting to the edge of the couch, our eyes totally locked. What matters isn't that he rubs my forearms and holds my hand and asks me questions about my ex and listens with an open heart. What matters isn't that he says the most gracious things about my work as a poet, words so gracious and intuitive, I begin to cry. What matters isn't that Marvin Gaye's Let's Get It On comes on the exact moment we know it is time to finally, after these riveting hours together, jump each other's bones and rip each other's clothes off after, of course, first acknowledging the irony of this song at this exact moment. What matters is that I'm pretty sure we both know that in a perfect world, this would be the beginning of the rest of our lives. But in this world, in this reality, where he isn't Jewish and lives in Indianapolis and votes Republican, even though our souls are dancing a most gorgeous waltz, I keep the rest of our lives wall high. And I know he can feel it. Every time he comments on a future, I know he knows. I can feel it most at 6 a.m. when I'm getting ready to leave. 10 minutes before that, he had been belting Old Man River to me as we lay naked in his bed, his head on his pillow, our eyes still locked, my back resting on his bent knees. Now, he sits on his ottoman, my infinity scarf draped around his neck, and he says, "Whatever I want. Whatever I want." I know he knows we may never see each other again. For the next 48 hours, every time I think about him, my pelvis pulses. On the flights home, on the subway back in New York. For the next 48 hours, I think obsessively about an article I wrote for The Forward, which is a Jewy publication for those that don't know. It matters to understand the context here. An article I wrote for The Forward that my editor regrettably titled, "Why I Only Date Jewish Guys." After 30 years of Jewish being my number one non-negotiable, I feel like it's starting to slip from my grasp. I can't tell if I'm trying to fit Kyle into my future, Or if I'm trying to redefine my future, unleash my walls. On the sixth day that God created the earth, on the sixth day, that just felt like a thing to say, you know? We're like on high alert for Jew things, so let's just name it all, you know? On the sixth day, after our serendipitous encounter, I came down with tonsillitis, and I am bedridden. I spend the whole day obsessing. This is my second time using obsessing, so just keep in mind there's a lot of obsessing here. I spend the whole day in bed obsessing. Is fate more important than religion and political views? Is background more important than the sheer connection two souls share? Is it possible to spend an entire night together? Oh, not night, life, very different. An entire life together based on the magic of a single night. I watch before midnight, as any asshole does, to get answers. For those that don't know, this is the third installment in that Ethan Hawke, Julie Delpy romantic series about a Parisian and an American who meet by chance, like Kyle and me. Kyle and I. Two kids from two sides of the tracks. Me, a white liberal Jewish girl from the affluent north suburbs of Chicago. He, a white right-wing Lutheran Republican from a blue-collar farm town in the middle of Illinois. But oh, how our souls collided. How our breaths encapsulated one another. How our bodies moved to the most amalgamated harmony and our lips touched with the most gentle and passionate fervor. He said he never kissed during sex. I said that was such a Pretty Woman line and asked why he did. But I already knew the answer. I could have told him I love you by the end of the night, but I didn't. And now, here I am, sick in bed, 6 days after one of the greatest nights of my life, watching a movie about a couple who met on a train, fell in love overnight, didn't see each other for 10 years, and still end up married and fighting in the final chapter. I don't have any answers about what I'm supposed to do with Kyle. I do have some ideas about what I'm supposed to do with myself. I remember this moment when Kyle held me. Our bodies warm and interchangeable. And he asked me to recite one of my poems. All I could say was, "You're an angel." Our sexual chemistry was like speaking a language I'd waited my entire 30 years to speak. But it was so much more. He opened me beyond dichotomies. The walls of demographics no longer chaining me. I feel like all that matters is that this one-day partner of mine, whomever they are, wherever they are, whenever they find me and I find them, whether we already know each other or not, as long as they know that God is unconditional love, that's all that matters. I imagine he'll still sit next to me at shul, still help me light the candles on Hanukkah, still stand with me under the chuppah at our wedding, still hold my hand on the bima at our children's b'nai mitzvot, Jewish or not. Because in the end, that's the kind of partnership for which I'm looking. That's the kind of soul I want to find. Thank you.